Wow, that leaves images, right? But we've all got at least one difficult person in our lives.
Or sometimes several of them.
Yeah.
These are the people who annoy you, they frustrate you, they just make your life miserable.
Pulling your hair out and screaming, I'm already frustrated by these people, probably won't help. So we've got tips.
That's right, and here to help us deal with that now is life coach Renessa Boley. She's got some great tips on how to keep your cool in the face of such people. And Renessa, we all have to deal with these people because it's just like good and evil.
Yep.
We wish we could all have good in our lives,
Yep.
but it's going to happen.
Yes, life would be awesome without difficult people.
But the fact of the matter is that they're ever present.
Yep.
But they're different lines of distinction. A difficult person at work is very much different than a difficult person in your own home.
Yep.
So let's start with work, for example.
Sure. I think first, fundamentally, we all have to admit that at some point in our lives, we've all been the difficult person for somebody else. And never that.
I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you look at me, mister.
We have all been the difficult person for someone else. And fundamentally, what we have to understand, whether it's a coworker or the mother-in-law from you-know-where, fundamentally, as people, we all walk around 95% of the time with some level of what I call insecurity. Okay. We're worried about what someone think about us. How do I look? Am I too fat? Am I too skinny? Does my boss think I add value? Does my husband love me? Does my wife respect me? So we walk around wondering, am I getting the approval, and how am I being judged in the eyes of other people?
All right.
And oftentimes that will dictate the kind of behavior that we put out there for folks.
So depending on how we're feeling inside.
It depends on how we feel. Oftentimes when you come across difficult people, it has nothing to do with you at all. So let's be clear, their behavior is directed at you. You happen to be the object of that crossword or that obnoxious behavior. But 9 times out of 10, it has absolutely nothing to do with you at all.
So what do you do when you want to kill them?
You don't kill them.
I said when you want to
Number
kill them.
one on our list.
You don't kill them. I think the first thing that you have to recognize, because we all try to figure out, well, how do I respond? What do I say? And usually when we're thinking about responding, we're trying to figure out, how do I get this person off my back? How do I put them, quote unquote, in check or in a box? Or how do I make myself feel better? But what you got to understand, first of all, it's not about you, for one. So if I come from that place, I'm good. Second, I've got to put my ego to the side. So my ego says, well, if my mother-in-law is all over my tail, then I need to, this is my husband and I've got to, this is my home and so on and so forth.
My domain.
I've got to protect myself. But when I come to the table understanding, wow, okay, there's something going on with her, how can I figure out how to make this right? So in the mother-in-law situation, we'll just use that since we brought that example out there, if that's okay. You've got mother-in-laws who are giving away their babies, their sons, and even though you're the wife, you're a bit of a threat because, she's always been number one. And so you can approach that situation with the difficult in-law and say, wow, Mary or so-and-so, something's not working here. How can I make this easier for you? Or what can I do to make this circumstance work for you?
And what if they shut you off or just say, I don't know what you're talking about?
Well, you create your boundaries. So obviously, dealing with difficult people doesn't mean that you become a doormat and that you allow yourself to get run over. But oftentimes, when you're the one to step in with humility first, it breaks down all the guards and all the barriers. But if I come to the table with pride, if I come to the table thinking I've got to win this argument or I've got to win this fight, then you're automatically going to clash it.
Right. You're going to make life difficult. And this is an interesting point because really what you're saying is this is your life. Why are you letting other people bring you down?
Exactly. So if we've got coworkers in the office that are, we'll take a boss for an example. Oftentimes people talk a lot about, well, I've got a boss who just micromanages me. I can't believe it. He's always on my case about this or that or the other. Well, if you're looking at it from the boss's perspective, he's thinking, what do my bosses think of me? How is this department performing? So on and so forth. So it
we're
really
all coming from the same background.
It's all coming from the same place. It's not even about you. It's about how do you make me look in front of my peers. And so with the boss, it's figuring out, how do I make my boss look the absolute best? What can I do to give my boss a level of certainty that the job is getting done? How many updates do you need from me at the end of the week? Or what's the right form of communication that I should have with you? And so you're meeting people's needs, so then you've assuaged whatever their insecurity or their issue is, and it changes the relationship.
This all sounds really good, and it probably can work.
But
there are those people in those situations where you just don't want to be kind. You're coming from a different place. You've had a hard day, and you've listened to this person, across from you in the cubicle all week long, and you just want to explode. I mean, you know, what do you do then?
So the question becomes, if I explode, what happens then?
Right.
But it feels so good to explode.
It feels good to explode until tomorrow. And now tomorrow
you don't
this
have
person is angry and offended with you, and it escalates.
I think in that case you go to primal scream therapy.
That is right.
Is that right?
That's
that
right.
work?
So it's a matter, again, it becomes, you know, there's something that I can do in the moment that makes me feel great. I've told you off. I walk out and I'm good. But then tomorrow I still have to come back to the same cube and I have to deal with the same person.
I had an agent once in a television news who had some great piece of advice, very similar to what you're saying. I had a really bad day, and I had primal scream therapy to a coworker who I did not get along well with. And I went home and thought about it.
This was not us. This was not us.
Believe it or not, it really was not. But in any event, I went home that night and I was dreading going back to work the next day because of this fool I made myself in the office. And I called my agent and he said, "Doug, there's a million people in that office who are worried about their own problems. They're not worried about your problems."
It's not all about you.
You make a great point, Doug. You said, I'd had a hard day. This was what was going on with me. And so what was going on with you dictated the kind of response that you had to that person. It was probably far less about the other person's issue. That was the kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. But it was really you and the state that you were in that affected how you responded. So if you think about that, sometimes with other people, that's what's going on with them.
Perception is everything.
Yeah, it totally is. Well, you have this difficult person in your life, office, home, wherever. But you say office because that's the hardest part. Because usually you can blow up with, you know, a spouse or something like that, and they're married to you. They have to forgive you, right? They have to deal with you. But if you try to somehow soften the blow and try to work it out with a coworker, and that person isn't meeting you halfway, do you just cut it off and write them off then?
Yeah, you've got a couple options. I think one, again, it is, you know, who do I show up as in this circumstance and make sure that I'm not adding fuel to the fire. Because at the end of the day, I can only control me. I cannot control you, right?
Right.
So once I've made every effort, I've killed them with kindness, so to speak, and even if they don't respond, that doesn't determine whether or not I'm continuing to be kind to you. But at the end of the day, I set my boundaries in terms of what I will accept, how we'll interact with one another, and if you don't want to interact with me on a level that is beyond professional, then we do what we need to do in the office, and the rest of it, I kind of let go.
You kind of have
but
to cut off.
I'm the one that's responsible for how bitter I allow myself to get, how resentful I allow myself to get. Then that's on me. I can't blame that on you.
Right.
So I make every effort I can to make that relationship right, and then I make decisions to either cut it off or not.
Can we hire you for our office?
Yeah, you know, this
we might need you to sit just in the middle of all the cubicles out there.
Renessa Boley has wisdom beyond her years.
I know.
I don't even know how old you are, but
I am 34
I can tell
You're
in a
not
couple
supposed
days.
to ask a woman
I'm
her age.
34. I'll put it out there.
Well, you look good.
Thank you.
You sure do, and you sound better, which is just wonderful.
Appreciate
Thank you.
that.